Okay, so picture this. You got a family, and they're really struggling to pay their energy bills.
Mhm.
Bundled up in blankets all winter, or maybe like sweltering in that summer heat. It's tough, right? A lot of people go through this, but what if I told you there are these people working behind the scenes like quiet heroes trying to make a difference? Today, we're diving deep into those weatherization programs, and we're going way beyond just like adding insulation. You know what I mean? We're going to explore the human impact and the tech that makes it all happen.
Yeah, it's easy to forget about them, The work these programs do often flies under the radar.
For sure. And we've got some really interesting sources lined up today. We'll hear from people on the ground at these community action agencies, get their stories, and even peek into the tech that's changing how they help families.
It's this really cool blend of, social good and cutting-edge tech.
It really is.
Yeah.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, we've got to start with the basics. What exactly is a weatherization department? What do they actually do?
You can think of them as the unsung heroes of those community action agencies. The ones fighting poverty on the front lines.
And just so everyone's on the same page, community action agencies are those nonprofits working to empower low-income families and individuals.
Exactly. They help them become self-sufficient. And within those agencies, you'll find the weatherization departments. Their whole mission is to make homes healthier, safer, and, more energy efficient, especially for those who need it most.
So it's more than just handing out blankets in the winter.
Oh, way more. One of our sources really stresses the need for solutions tailored to each agency's needs and ways of doing things. There's this quote from Katie McLemore. She's an applications analyst at a community action partnership. And she talks about how crucial it is to have software that actually gets their workflow. They use a system from Hemingway Solutions, which is made specifically for the ins and outs of these programs.
That makes a lot of sense. You
Yeah.
always hear about local governments and agencies stuck with outdated tech.
Totally. And in this line of work, it's especially important. They're dealing with so much data, navigating all these regulations, and often running on tight budgets. Having technology that works with them, not against them, can make or break them.
So it's not just about having the shiniest new gadgets. It's about the right tools for the job. And speaking of tools, let's look at what a weatherization department actually does. One source broke it down like this. They conduct energy audits to find leaks and inefficiencies. They install energy-saving upgrades like insulation and air sealing. And this is a big one. They handle health and safety improvements.
Yeah, that last part often gets overshadowed, but it's so important. We're not just talking about staying warm or cool, we're talking about preventing serious dangers like carbon monoxide poisoning. And you can imagine how critical that is for vulnerable folks.
It's about creating a safe and healthy living environment from the ground up. Now, this next one might not sound as exciting as, say, installing solar panels, but trust me, it's a game changer. Replacing old, inefficient appliances.
Oh, you wouldn't believe the impact swapping out an old fridge can have. It's huge for their budget and the environment.
Exactly. And that's something we often forget. These small changes can have a ripple effect on a family's well-being. But how does this all play out in the real world? How do these departments take these tools and turn them into actual results for families? Well, to see how this works in action, let's head up north to Minnesota. They've got this community action partnership of Ramsey and Washington counties, and they've been knocking it out of the park for over a decade.
They've definitely found a winning formula, right? Our sources highlight how effective they've been helping over 200 homes a year.
Wow, that's impressive. So what's their secret? We actually get a peek behind the curtain thanks to this YouTube video featuring Hans Nordstrom Strom, their data analyst.
Yeah, Hans gives some really interesting insights into how they do things. One thing that stood out to me was how adaptable they were, especially during COVID.
Right, we talked about how important it is for these agencies to be flexible, and it seems like they really stepped up.
Oh, for sure. They had to completely rethink their whole energy audit process to keep everyone safe, both their staff and the families they were helping.
Makes sense. So what did they do?
Well, they switched to this two-visit model. They did the initial assessments remotely and then scheduled a separate in-person visit for more in-depth testing.
So even in the middle of a pandemic, they found a way to keep those vital services going. That says a lot about their commitment.
Absolutely. And what's even more impressive is that they didn't just stick with that pandemic workaround forever. As the things started getting back to normal, they took another look at their process. And they actually decided to go back to a single visit audit to streamline things.
Which goes back to that key idea we've been talking about,
So,
adapting and evolving as things change.
exactly. They worked really closely together to make sure their software could handle all the changes they were making.
So they weren't just using some off-the-shelf software. They were actively collaborating to customize it,
Hmm.
making sure it stayed relevant and useful as their day-to-day reality shifted.
Exactly. It really highlights that point we made earlier. In a field like social services where things are always in flux, you can't have static technology solutions. This constant communication and willingness to adapt are so essential.
And it sounds like Hemingway Solutions was up for the challenge. Almost like they were inventing new tech jargon just to keep up with this agency. But at the end of the day, it's all about the human impact, right? Behind all those data points and software updates are real families trying to build a better life. And speaking of those data points, Hans shared this really interesting story about how deeply integrated that Laserfiche system is in their everyday work. He pointed out that it's not just him, the data analyst guy using it, it's everyone. The schedulers making appointments, the program associates working with clients, even the folks in the costing department crunching numbers, they're all using the same system.
See, that's what makes them so effective. They've broken down those silos. When you have everyone on the same page with a shared system that's actually easy to use, it just opens up these lines of communication and collaboration that you wouldn't believe, especially compared to those old outdated systems where everything's all over the place.
Yeah, no more running around with files hoping the right person sees the latest update. And you can tell Hans is a true believer in this system. He lights up when he talks about Laserfiche and Hemingway Solutions, calls Laserfiche a valuable tool, even says the results speak for themselves. When someone who uses this stuff every day gets that excited.
It really says something, right? It shows you how powerful technology can be when it's actually designed for the people using it, and when it's put in place to solve those real-world challenges they face day in and day out.
It's not just about having fancy new tech. It's about using it to empower the people on the front lines, making their jobs a little bit easier and ultimately helping them serve their clients better. So yeah, next time you're sitting at a nice, comfortably heated or cooled home, take a second to think about it. Think about those often unseen heroes and the incredible technologies working behind the scenes. It's a good reminder that these weatherization programs, they're about so much more than insulation and energy audits.
They're about building stronger, healthier communities, one home, one family at a time.
And that wraps up our deep dive into the world of weatherization programs. We covered a lot of ground today. Hopefully you've come away with a better understanding of the vital work these programs do, the challenges they face, and the innovative ways they're using technology to overcome them.
And maybe most importantly, it got you thinking. Thinking about how we can apply these same ideas, these same approaches to tackle other social challenges in our own communities.
Because real change happens when we shine a light on these often invisible efforts and recognize the huge impact they have on the lives of real people.